Hello, and welcome back to the Librarian of the Rings. My name is Ben, I'm the librarian, and today we are going to be summarizing the first part of the Silmarillion, the Ainulindalë. Welcome back. Today we are resuming helping you understand the Silmarillion. Now previously we've talked about the structure of the Silmarillion and what the Silmarillion is. So if you need those videos, make sure you go back and check out them as well. They will all be put together in a playlist of Silmarillion summaries. But today we're going to be working on summarizing the very first part of this story, which is the Ainulindalë, or the music of the Ainur. Now before we go any further, I just want to say that I'm really bad at pronunciation. It's something that I really struggle with, even with regular English words, and so don't expect me to pronounce these Elvish words correctly all of the time. If mispronunciation offends you, then maybe you're looking for another video, but I'm not going to let mispronunciation stop me from helping you to understand the Silmarillion. Okay, let's go ahead and get started explaining what the Ainulindalë is. Now, the Ainulindalë is a really short part at the very beginning of the Silmarillion. It's only about 12 pages, and the Ainulindalë means the music of the Ainur. As a brief summary, the Ainulindalë is the creation myth of Middle-earth, as told by the elves. That'll all make a little bit more sense as we go in and explain it, and then as you go in and read it. Now, you may have already read it, or you may just be planning on reading it. I hope that this video will serve you either way. We're going to talk about a few things. First, we're going to talk about some vocabulary, just so you can kind of understand what some of the words and phrases in the Ainulindalë mean. And then we're going to talk about the major characters that are in this story, and we'll try and do this for each section or chapter of the Silmarillion so that you can kind of keep track of what's going on. Characters can be a real sticking point for people as they're reading through. Then we'll summarize the major events that take place in this section, and lastly we'll talk about the major themes that are there. And hopefully this will give you a structure by which you can understand what's going on. Now, as I said, the Ainulindalë is really short but also incredibly deep, and it is very kind of scriptural in its tone. And so if you don't understand it all right away, don't worry about it. That's totally okay. It is important as a foundation, but you can go ahead and enjoy the stories that are in the Silmarillion without having a full grasp of what's happening in the Ainulindalë. All right, let's start off talking about some of the vocabulary. I'm going to do this in the order that they appear as you're reading it. Our first vocab word is going to be Ainur. Ainur is the plural of Ainu. Okay, so if you see those two words, they mean the same thing, just Ainu, singular, and Ainur, plural. These are called the Holy Ones, and they are essentially the angelic beings, or sometimes referred to in some of Tolkien's writings as the gods. They are the ones who are going to help to create the world and then guide the world. There are a few references to characters that are Ainu in The Lord of the Rings, but they don't come up very often. Elbereth is probably going to be your main point of contact here, and Elbereth is not actually mentioned in this particular section. But the Ainu are the Holy Ones, but they aren't the god. That's going to be Iluvatar, which we'll get to in the characters section. The next term is the imperishable flame. This comes up quite a bit in this section, and it's really important. It's essentially the creation power of Iluvatar. So it is the thing that he uses to bring both the Ainur and his children into being. You can think of it kind of like the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of creation. Next is the void. Now, the void is essentially the absence of the imperishable flame. It is the emptiness that fills the immensity of space, essentially. Next, we have the children of Iluvatar. Now, this vocab word essentially means two things that you're going to be familiar with if you read The Lord of the Rings. They are the elves and the men. The elves are often called the firstborn, and the men are going to be called the followers. Remember that all of the Silmarillion is being told from an elvish perspective, so they view men as the younger children, or the followers. Next is the great music. This is the music of the Ainur. This is the music that is essentially the first draft of creation, and it's where the focus of this entire section is going to be. The next term is Valar, and I've talked about this in another video already, but Valar are essentially the greatest of the Ainur who have descended into Middle-earth and are bound to Middle-earth. So not all Ainur are Valar, but all Valar are Ainur. The last vocab word here is the timeless halls. This is where Iluvatar dwells. It's the space outside of the void and outside of time, and it's where Iluvatar and the Ainur first created the music. Now let's hit on the major characters here. We've already talked about Iluvatar, who is also called Eru. This is essentially the god of Middle-earth. He is the ultimate creator. The flame imperishable dwells inside and with him, and he is the one who creates the Ainur, and the Ainur then create many other things. He also creates his children, which are the elves and men, and he is the ultimate orchestrator of the music. The next named character is Melkor. He is the first named Ainur, and he is considered the greatest of the Ainur. He has great skill unto himself, and he also has a portion of all of the skill of all of the other Ainur. And he is a major player in the music. Now, Melkor is going to take on the role of the fallen angel. If you've ever heard the word Morgoth thrown around, Morgoth is going to be his name when he becomes identified as the enemy. But this is the same character. He's going to take on that role of fallen angel, or that Lucifer figure, who comes from great potential and turns to great evil. He will be the antagonist of essentially the entire Silmarillion. If you want to situate this inside of a Lord of the Rings context, understand that Melkor is basically Sauron's boss and mentor. And so if you think Sauron is bad, Melkor is far, far worse. We don't get another named character for quite a while into the Ainulindalë, but then one who does come up next is Ulmo. Ulmo is the one whose thought is most directed towards water in the music. So he's essentially going to be like the deity figure of water throughout this book. And it says that he's the one who receives the most instruction on the music from Iluvatar. So he's going to be the most in tune to the music. And so Ulmo is going to be one that you really want to keep track of as you read the Silmarillion, because he's going to have the best idea of what's happening with the music and how to guide the children of Iluvatar in that music. Next we have Manwë. Manwë is the Ainur who directed his thoughts most towards air and wind. So that he is kind of the god of the air and the wind. He's the one that the eagles are associated with in a Middle-earth context. And he is considered the brother of Melkor in Iluvatar's mind. And so you will see this struggle between Manwë and Melkor as kind of the good and evil sides of things. And lastly, of the named Ainur, we have Aule. Aule is the Ainur whose thought is most bent on the earth. He's going to eventually be the father of the dwarves, so that's going to be really important. And he is the greatest craftsman of the Ainur besides Melkor. So he has skill almost to Melkor's level, but not quite. So those are the 5 named characters in the Ainulindalë. Now, one thing to note is that the 4 Ainur that we get are associated essentially with the 4 elements that were understood by the ancients. Melkor with fire, Ulmo with water, Manwë with air or wind, and Aule with earth. And so that's just good kind of framework to keep track of. These are going to be really important characters throughout the story. Now, if you're wondering about other Valar, don't worry. We're going to get a whole big list of them and what they do in the next section. But for now, we just know that there are many of them participating in the music, and these 4 are named. All right, now let's talk about the major events that take place in this section. Like I said, this is a short section, but it is packed full and very deep. And so there are actually a lot of major events that happen here. The beginning of the music with the first theme of Iluvatar is the first major point. And the music is progressing, and then Melkor decides that he is going to try and increase his own part and create discord. And so that's where this starts happening. And this is where other Ainur first start to tune themselves to the music of Melkor. And so we can see the drawing away of some of these angelic beings into Melkor's side, into Melkor's orchestra, if you will, creating music that is dissonance and discord with the music of Iluvatar. So then we have Iluvatar begin the second theme, and this theme essentially contains the great clash of the musics, where Melkor becomes extremely almost violent, I guess you would say, if you can use that in a music context. And actually some of the Ainur cease to sing altogether because of this great conflict that is taking place in the second theme, to the point where Melkor's music actually overwhelms the music of the other Ainur. But then Iluvatar begins the third theme. And in the third theme, the 2 musics essentially run parallel to each other, back and forth, until Iluvatar stops the music, showing that Iluvatar is ultimately the one who is in control. After the music ceases, Iluvatar is going to explain that no music can be created that doesn't have its ultimate beginning and ending with him. Essentially, no matter what Melkor tries to do, the music of Iluvatar is going to play out, and Melkor can only be an instrument in that music, no matter how hard he tries to create discord and create his own music within it. Then Iluvatar goes ahead and he shows the Ainur a vision of the world. This is essentially a visual representation of what they have already sung. So we have the first draft, which is really the music, and the second kind of draft, which is this vision. They see the music taking place, but the vision is incomplete. During this time, Iluvatar and Ulmo are going to have a conversation, which serves as a representation to us of what Iluvatar means by Melkor not being able to basically destroy the music. Iluvatar and Ulmo are going to talk about how Melkor's creation of cold and heat ultimately lead his water to become more beautiful and more useful, and ultimately draws the water and the air together so that Ulmo and Manwë can create wonderful things together. And so that's just kind of the example of how it's not going to work for Melkor to try and destroy the music of Iluvatar. He can only make it better no matter what his evil tries to do. Then Iluvatar is going to speak the world into being, and some of the Ainur are going to decide to descend into the world to participate directly in the fulfillment of the music. These are going to be the ones who are known as the Valar. These are the greatest of the Ainur who descend into the world. And the 4 that we've talked about are going to be kind of the chief among them. Now, once they get down there, Melkor is going to start trying to take over, and Manwë is ultimately going to send him away, telling him that he cannot claim this as his own kingdom when so many have participated in its creation. And Melkor is going to be gone for a while this creation is taking place. The Valar that are left are going to decide to embody themselves in the world. So they are going to take on bodily forms, which are not necessary for them, but it talks about these being like clothes that they can put on and take off. And they do this after the vision that they've seen of the children of Iluvatar. So they didn't know about the children of Iluvatar when they were singing the music, but they saw the children of Iluvatar in the vision. That was Iluvatar's own part of the music. And so they saw the elven men, and so they embody themselves basically in humanoid form. Melkor is going to see this, and ultimately he's going to return in a form of great majesty, and there's going to be great conflict between him and the Valar. Tremendous upheaval before the children of Iluvatar awaken, and so it says that the elves don't know a lot about that. They just know that there was great turmoil and war between the Valar and Melkor. And that's where it's going to kind of leave off here. This is the Ainulindalë, the very beginning of the story. Now, what are the major themes here? Creation is obviously a big part of this. This is the creation myth. It's the whole world coming into being. But I would say that the 2 major themes here are related, and one is that Iluvatar is ultimately in control of the music. No matter what happens, Iluvatar's vision for the music is going to be seen out. Even though evil might try to stop it, evil will ultimately only make it more beautiful. And that's going to be a theme that we're going to see throughout the book. And so that will be important for us to hold on to and pay attention to. The second thing that I think is really important to draw out of this is that the music is continuing. The music is not done. Those first 3 themes were really a first draft of creation. Then there was the vision, but it continues. The music is still being played out. That's important to understand, particularly as you are reading the Silmarillion and even down into Lord of the Rings, is that the music continues to be played out. It has not ended yet. Okay, there you have it. I hope that this summary of the Ainulindalë will help you to get started in reading the Silmarillion, and next time we will actually be summarizing the Valaquenta, which will help us to know a lot more about the Valar. If you have any questions at all, please drop them down in the comments below. Let me know how you're liking this series and what kinds of things you would like to see me do here on this channel. Until next time, farewell wherever you fare. May your ears receive you at your journey's end.